Okay, so we're going from messy to, what's the word? Okay, so messy to proficient. Is anybody in their life trying to get to a level of proficiency? Okay. Now, let me ask it this way. Are you proficient at everything in your life, or is there an area you're trying to get proficiency? Okay, so now let me ask it again. How many are trying for another level of proficiency in their life? Okay, good. So let's see what the steps are to get from messy to proficient. The steps, since this is new, I'm going to have my cheat sheet. All right, so the steps to get from messy to proficient. Now understand, these are the exact steps that I had to take. I had to take them. If I give them to you, will you take them? Yes. Because in our lives, there are areas where we are messy, and there are areas where we're proficient, and there are areas where we're at mastery, which is the next level. We all have all the pieces inside of us. True? And so when that's true, we have to be willing to take the steps that take us from messy to proficient, and then from proficient to mastery. We'll take those steps. So the steps that I have, and see, I even wrote it on the back of a paper because that's all I could find at the moment. That's how new it is. Okay, and so these are not in a particular order, but these are the steps that I took. Number 1 is forgive yourself daily. How often? Daily. Forgive yourself daily. That was one of the hardest things for me to do. Because I was so used to beating myself up for things. I was so used to feeling bad. I was so used to feeling negative that forgiving self was a very hard thing for me to do. But I knew I had to do it. So I got to where I would forgive myself daily for at least one thing. At least one thing. I didn't at first tell myself I had to forgive myself for everything, but I'd pick at least one thing. How many? One thing. Can you forgive yourself for one thing from this morning? Yes. Notice that was only half of you. Because we don't think about this. We are used to holding on to what we do wrong. Because we're given responsibility. As we're growing up in our environment, we learn that if we take responsibility, we get out of trouble faster. True? Mostly true. And so what'll happen is we don't get the whole training on letting go and forgiving ourselves. So step 1 is forgive self daily. The next one, and it's going to have 2 parts, is I had to put new on the outside of me. I had to put new on the outside. So let me explain what that means. There's 2 parts that I specifically did. One of them was I needed new body language, and the second was I needed a new appearance. So new body language and new appearance. So for the body language, one of the first things that I did was I went from folding my arms to putting my hands down to my side. And it was, oh my gosh, it was a battle. You guys, my body was so not used to having my hands down to my side that the first few days when I unfolded my arms and put them down to my side, my fingers swole up so big because there wasn't even the blood vessels to pull the blood back up out of my fingers. That's how ingrained I was in having this kind of closed body language. And so when I tell people have open body language, it is absolutely from experience that I am speaking. And so I taught myself to hold my hands down to my sides. I didn't know everything about body language. In fact, all I knew was that if I had any body language, it was probably bad. That's all I knew. And so I would walk around like this. And people are like, why do you do that? Because this is better body language. And they're like, are you sure? Yes. I've got to put a new groove in my record here. I have to have a new way of behaving. So I put my hands down to my sides, and eventually my fingers quit swelling, and I could put my rings back on. It was so crazy. So then the next thing I did was I went out and I bought one piece of clothing, one suit coat jacket. I remember I told you yesterday, I walked into Ross, I circled the store a few times. I finally went over to the business section and I bought a suit coat because they happened to have one. It was my size and it was on clearance because nobody else wanted it either. And I bought it. And I went home and I locked the door to the bathroom and I put it on. And I looked in the mirror and went, ah! And I took it off and put it in the back of the closet. Because it actually scared me. It was the strangest thing, you guys. I actually had thoughts in my head that if you go out in that suit coat, people will think you're prideful. And I'm like, are you serious? And I believed the voices in my head. I had to have new on the outside, new body language, and pick one new thing. It didn't have to be a lot. I think that it was a suit coat and pants, and I think it was $13 because it was on clearance. It didn't cost a lot, but what it did for my brain was priceless. What it did for my brain was priceless. So I picked new to have on the outside. I started putting makeup on. And then I had to fight with my brain to go out and be seen. And I remember walking out into the living room, and my kids are like, oh, are we going to a party? And I'm like, no, I just got dressed, that's all. And they're like, but you don't dress like that. Like, I do now. Now I dress like this. So the next piece, so forgive self, put something new on the outside. And number 3 is become teachable. Be teachable. And I don't mean teachable in the traditional sense of the word. I mean, because remember, this is how Ann took steps, right? So these are Ann's steps, but are they going to be your steps? Okay, you don't have to take all of them, but I would suggest the ones that ring true with you, you take these steps. Because I had to go figure this out. I was learning all of these things, but I had to figure out how to put it into practice. And so to be teachable meant I had to recognize that just because the comment went through my head did not mean there wasn't a better way to look at things. So I had to help my brain be teachable, that there was something new to look at. So yesterday, when I talked about brushing your teeth on the top first instead of on the bottom, do you remember that? That's the kind of thing that I had to do to become teachable. I had to let myself do things differently than I'd always done them and let my brain see there is a better way. It's a possibility that there's something different that could be done. So number 3, be teachable. Number 4 is focus inward. Focus inward. And what I mean by that is this. Our tendency in the world, what I notice in the world right now is our tendency is to look, we talked about this yesterday, both Kirk and I did, that the tendency in the world is to try to find a finger they can point at something outside of themselves. There is a lot of this going on in the world. And one of the things that I did to take myself from messy to proficient was I learned to focus inside and find out what piece was in me. It does not take anybody around me to change even 1 inch for me to improve what's going on around me. So let me say that one more time. It doesn't take the people around me to change 1 single inch for me to be able to change what goes on around me. I have power by working on me, because anything I do to change me ripples out and the people around me feel it. So I had to learn to focus on what was in me that I had power to change. And so I focused inside. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Number 5 is I had to practice. I had to practice. So I knew I wanted to be a mentor. I knew I was messy, and I wanted to be a mentor. Did you know those can coexist at the same time? I was messy, and I wanted to mentor. And so the first thing I had to do was practice.